Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cultural Resets Artist Interview Series. This is Nick Lee,
I'm Shay.
and we are back with another incredible artist. This artist is an actor and singer and songwriter and producer. He's also a guest star on Netflix's On My Block. He plays Coach Ron, and he's a New York native. This is Rob Murat. If you'd like to introduce yourself,
Hey.
Rob.
How you guys doing? Happy to be here.
Good, good. So we want to start this off with the usual question that we ask all the artists that come on here. When and where did your individual creative journey begin?
Um, Creatively, I feel like I was born with creative legs. My grandfather is an internationally known trumpet player and jazz musician from the island of Haiti, and he's world renowned. So I grew up around music, and it's just kind of feel like it's organic in my blood.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful. So
yeah.
you got your start. So when did you break into the industry? When did you decide really that you wanted to break into the
You
industry?
know, I mentioned Haiti. So my parents are two academics, and
Mhm.
my dad's an engineer and a professor. My mom's an accountant. So going into the arts right out of high school wasn't something that they kind of threw favor on,
Mhm.
but they encouraged me. So I did the arts all throughout high school, but it was when I got into college that I really started taking it seriously, and doing the singing thing. Very, very hardcore, and also started studying acting as well. And so it was right around college. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Cool, Ivy League.
Yes, sir.
University, okay. I love it. I
Yeah.
see.
How's your
hmm
experience been performing in New York and around that area with your music?
Well, that's where we started. So right out of school, started touring all the clubs in New York, and it was gritty, hardcore, a lot of competition, but it was amazing. Starting off on New York circuit, that's where I kind of sharpened my swords and kind of took it nationally. After that, started touring other places. So New York was always a blessing for me. I'm in LA now shooting, and it's like my second home. But New York was where I started doing the performing thing.
Nice.
That's
Yeah,
dope.
yeah,
So I understand that you are an actor and like you navigate the TV and film space of the entertainment industry, but you also are a
yeah.
singer-songwriter and producer.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
what is generally thought about when it comes to those two facets of the entertainment industry is that they're worlds apart. And we did an artist interview a while back with an artist named Maya J, who also kind
hmm
of works in the TV and film scape and also works with the music scape. So she
Yeah.
was talking to us about, what it's like to combine those two worlds. What is it like for you to combine those two worlds on like on the creative side?
They are worlds apart, but they're two creative entities. So,
Mhm.
given that I excel in both of them, I think I've made it my goal to excel in front of the camera and
Mhm.
also provide music to the soundtrack of a project I'm working on. So you see Common doing it, right? So he'll act on a project, but also have a song on the soundtrack, right? You'll see even a good buddy of mine, John Legend, he's starting to do some of the acting stuff. So he'll be in front of the camera, but he
Mhm.
also has a whole bunch of music on the soundtrack. And there are a few people who kind of master that. Jamie Foxx, even Will Smith. So that's my kind of model as to approaching this both music and acting thing, being able to excel and be respected as a fierce force on both sides. So that's my mindset. Yeah.
So often I find that, one creative talent or creative endeavor
hmm
overlaps with another,
hmm
um painting and music, like making a song is almost the same as making a painting. Like you don't know where it's gonna go when you start off.
Right.
Some people do, maybe some people have,
Sure.
like that's what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
But
Yep.
do you feel like, your creative energy kind of like overlaps between the two?
Absolutely. You know, um, I think what makes a song great is almost the same thing that makes acting in a certain scene great. And I think it all stems in honesty. If you listen to a song and you feel something, you know that the singer or whoever, or the rapper or whoever, is being honest about their emotions and their feeling, their storytelling. If you're watching a scene and you're locked into that scene, something's happening. There's an honesty in that setting. Like you're like, whoa, I know that's Denzel, but I believe that he's that guy right now. So there's an honesty both in songwriting as well as in acting that I do my very best to tap into. So there is an overlap. Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that something you had to, build up while you were going through your training?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You don't just hit the ground running. You run, but there's stumbling, and to tap into that honesty, it takes training. I'm trained on both sides, and also it takes living in order to tap into certain emotions and experiences that you can be true to.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, I a lot of what we do with this intimate artist interview series is really kind of try to allow the artists that we're talking to voice their opinions and their thoughts about the music industry, and really, I
Mhm.
guess in your case, about the entertainment industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So since you work in the TV and film landscape, do you feel like there is a sort of wave of inclusion that's coming across that industry when it comes to, making sure that there are more diverse faces in these spaces?
You know, the short answer would be yes.
Hmm.
You're definitely seeing more diversity being acknowledged. On the other hand, you question the pace at which that wave is kind of hitting, right? Is it
Hmm.
enough, right? You can settle and say, "Oh, okay, a few people are getting acknowledged," or you can say, well, there can be more. And what can we do to achieve more diversity in the game? So uh, do I acknowledge more diversity? Yes. Is it enough? No. But that's more motivation for me to keep doing what I'm doing so that I can kind of set the bar from more,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
What about in the music side of things, though? I'm
Mhm.
curious, like, do you see that same sort of progress being made in the music industry?
So, well, in music, would you say that it depends on what sector you're talking about? If you're talking POC, would you say POC is underrepresented in music?
I think on the creative side, no. I think that when you see a lot of artists, like you do, like a lot of POC artists do have a lot of hyper visibility, I
Hmm.
think. But when I think about inclusion in the music industry, for me, I think about inclusion in terms of marketing, like
Okay.
are artists that are POC, like artists that are black, for example, are they
Hmm.
confined to certain genres, to
Hmm.
R&B and to hip hop,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
are black artists that are in punk music also successful? Are they equally as marketable or considered
Hmm.
equally as marketable in the eyes of the music business?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great question. If you look at it from that perspective, uh, at one point, hip hop was considered a fad,
Mm,
and a lot of these hip hop heads were doing their things, mainly from New York, my hometown, and they were thought as something that they can't really break into the industry. It's their thing, and they'll pass, right? That whole hippity hop stuff, right?
mm,
But now hip hop is the trend, right? So if you're talking about anyone who's different than what's already in punk or already in country or in rock or alternative, I think as long as you have the skill set and the capacity to represent in that space, you've got to do it and you've got to hold true to it. Just
mhm.
like hip hop was new, if your face is new in punk or in rock, you got to represent and do your thing. Like, and you can't worry about. Remember, what's this guy's name? Darius Rucker,
Yeah.
and Hootie and the Blowfish and all that. I mean, he got a lot of resistance for being who he was and doing what he did, but that didn't matter to him. Now he's doing country. He's doing his thing, and it's not about he's breaking kind of that racial barrier that
Mhm.
would organically be built in front of him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think it all comes back down to the honesty. Yeah. If you're true about rock, if you're true about whatever it is that you're doing, no one can do anything about it, to be honest.
Yeah, we
I don't know
actually,
if that answers the question.
It does perfectly.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up statement slash
Hmm.
question. In
Sure.
one of our interviews we just had that was earlier uh, in the week, we were talking to an artist about like creating spaces versus like being somebody who is the first to do something. And it's like it's not the same, you know, just because you're the first to do something doesn't mean that the industry has changed. And that's not really like the goal is to
Hmm.
create a whole new space.
Hmm.
You know, it's not to include into the existing space and like try to like, I guess, rebuild from the inside, because like at the end of the day the infrastructure itself is kind of like built a lot of the times for white spaces and white industry, and the
Hmm.
structure
Hmm.
isn't really made to be diverse, and so it almost takes creating a whole new space that is
Hmm.
diverse from the start to be
Hmm.
able to have a lasting impact.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you, I guess my question is just like, do you agree, do you feel the same, do you think it's going to be something else, it is going to be inclusion into the existing spaces?
Not only is it a good thought process, but I hear the question, and there are two sides to it, right? Inherently, when you're first to do something, that should invite more people to do it, more
Mhm,
people like yourself to do it. And by default, a space is created
mhm,
because before you, there was none. No one thought about a Black or POC, LGBTQ, whoever, didn't think about you being able to do that. Now that you did it, it opened up folks' paradigm and their vision, like, uh-oh, wow, maybe these people can do it, right? To say these people, right? So you automatically create a space. Now, whether you use that breakthrough to create opportunities for others, I think that's up to you,
mhm,
right? You can stop there and say, hey, I'm the first, but what else, right? So you could be the first individual at doing this thing, or you can be the first at creating an infrastructure.
Mm.
And that's a better first, to piggyback off of your thought, right? There are first individuals and there are first shakers, movers and shakers, you know what I mean? Builders, right? You're architects building spaces that are beyond what folks are used to seeing. And I think, you can say anything you want about him, but Kanye has done that. He's not just the first producer to become a rapper or to become a fashion designer. He's inspired others to break into these spaces, and it's a movement, right? So yeah, it's about spaces.
So when it comes to being the first, it's not just about being the first. And this is kind of what
Mhm.
Lucia was saying last week too. You know, it's not
Mhm.
about being the first. It's about making sure that you are paving a pathway for others.
Mhm. See, there's again, I'll repeat, the first individual is not as strong as being the first space maker. Just to go off of Shay's point, right? I'm using her space terminology. You could be the first at creating a space. That's much more powerful than just being the first to be the first, because you can be forgotten. There's been many firsts that have been forgotten and gone right back to normal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
that is a very good point actually.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know, and it's also not the responsibility of the first sometimes, you know, maybe they're doing it just because that's what's true to them and honest to themselves, and it's not like, you know, they're going to go into a new space and be like, this is my responsibility now, I have to fight this fight.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I think part of it is organic too. Just by being the first, you can by default, as I mentioned before, be a creator of a new space.
Yeah.
And it's up to those following you or those that didn't think they can do it before to do it now.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, I mean, I see that there are a lot of new space makers, specifically in music. Like right now, I'm thinking about
Mhm.
the thousands of creators and creatives that,
Mhm.
you know, are creating, they're staying true to themselves, they're authentic, but you know,
Yeah.
their music isn't taking off, you know, their careers aren't taking off. So I guess,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to me it seems like becoming a space maker, it seems as if there's some sort of barrier to entry to even becoming a space maker. And I think that, like, for specifically for like marginalized groups,
Hmm.
like you can do your own thing, you can be really cool, like you can break into the space and you can be remembered for that, and you can make a space for others, but like also you have to break into that space, right? So that those are my thoughts on that. I'm just wondering too, you know, how do what advice would you have for a creative who wants to be themselves, you know, and wants to break into the industry as themselves, but it's been difficult for them just because, you know, the mainstream, for example, doesn't necessarily accept their creative and individual expression.
Hmm. Great question. You said, what do I tell an artist who wants to be themselves? Be
Essentially,
yourself.
yeah.
Be yourself,
Easy enough.
right?
No.
And that's it. Say less,
Yeah.
right? If I were to follow that up, I'd say continue,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone who we see as mainstream now
Mm-hmm.
have been themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? They've been unique.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be like someone else has never really been a groundbreaking endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Prince, Michael Jackson, James Brown, Madonna, Beyonce. I can keep going and going. It doesn't matter, right? You, they broke through because they were themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
they continued, right? And continued and continued. And know that your goal is to be yourself and to be authentic. And back to the term honesty, right? If you start chasing mainstream, you just lost, right? And you are no longer being yourself. You are looking to be someone who's being applauded now. And you're trying to massage yourself into someone that you are not. And you just failed. So continue to be yourself. Continue. Right? That's what
Well,
I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot harder to try to be somebody else, you know? It's
Yeah. I'm at, well, it sometimes it's in this space, it's easier to be a copycat than be yourself. You can just go into any producer studio, like, give me a song that sounds like that. I'll sing over it. But you
mm.
just created something that sounded like that, right? And so there's already that. There's not you, right?
Mhm.
So you're talking about breaking into someone else's space.
Mhm.
Back to that term, right?
Mhm.
If you're creating spaces, you've got to create space. It's easier said than done. Creating a space takes a grounded, a firm belief in what you're doing and what you're building, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And you've got to go through naysayers. You got to go through people not seeing or understanding what you're doing until they do.
I really like, sorry, Nick, did you have something to say?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna ask, you know, like what has it been like for you, you know,
Hmm.
in your own career, you know, going through the process of getting through these naysayers and like getting through these people who, or if you even had any naysayers, you know, what has it been like for you?
I think if you're an artist, you there's no way of avoiding naysayers, right? And I don't care uh, to which stage. I heard somebody say the other day that Stevie Wonder doesn't have a great voice. So that no, so no, so that in itself showed me that not everything is for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So just because someone doesn't like you, quote unquote naysayer, that has nothing to do with you, right? And that's what I've been locked into from the beginning, right? And I've been at this for a little bit, right? And I've kind of uh, planted my kind of flag in the music world and in the acting world, and I'm building both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find folks naysaying and saying you should give up or you shouldn't do it this way, don't do it that way. There are so many opinions, but opinions are like noses. Everybody has one. What are you about? Why are you about it? And what are you willing to do to get it? That's the focus. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You got to know what you're doing, why you're doing it.
I just love the noses are like, or opinions are like noses. Everybody has one.
Everybody got one, right?
Write that down.
Unless you have a condition, but more more often than not, you everyone's got an opinion. So some matter, some don't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Most don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
did you
w-
want to ask something?
yeah, I don't know what my question was earlier, but I have a question now too. So,
Yeah.
I want to talk about your song Dilemma.
Yeah.
Uh, that one very popular. I mean, and I
Yeah.
can see
That's yeah.
why.
Hmm.
I listened to the other songs in the album too, and uh I really, really love the style of them, but also
Yeah.
the incorporation. I always love when artists include little audio clips. So I
Hmm.
noticed that you had some of that going on. But if you
Yeah.
wanted to tell us about like maybe what that creative experience was like for you putting that together.
Dilemma was one of the first songs that the world had heard from me. So I put that out a little while back, and we're working on new music now, putting out a new album later this year, rolling out singles as we speak. But Dilemma has been my biggest song, right? Quote unquote indie hit or whatever. And I think people respond to it because of the style, because of the subject matter.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a guy singing he loves his woman and his freedom too. So it's like, what are you talking about, dude? And we got it's a great arrangement with horns and such. So I think we captured a vibe that folks could really rock to. So I think that's what folks attach to the most on Dilemma.
Where did that
Yeah.
sample come from? That's what I was curious about.
We interpolated. I don't think it's a sample. It's of Doris Day. Uh, perhaps.
Very
I
nice.
co-produced that with my boy Optics in
Optic.
Brooklyn, New York. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what drew me to it. It was the production of it. Like it was very, very unique in my opinion. Like I really, really, I liked how fresh it sounded. Is there a reason
Appreciate that.
you chose Doris Day? Like how did you come up?
No, it's just I heard the song
Mhm.
and I thought about responding to it. So you won't admit you love me, she sang. So I was like, wait a minute, why would a guy not admit he loved her?
Mm.
Oh, because he loves freedom too. So I just it was kind of my response to Doris Day. And like, this is why this guy doesn't admit he loves you, is because he loves his freedom too. And I
So
think a lot of folks, no gender specification, they have that feeling at some point in their lives. You know,
Yeah, it's universal.
not willingness to commit.
so you
Yeah.
said that this is the first song the world heard from you.
Yeah.
But do you have like a preferred song that like you treasure more than that? I mean, you must like that was one that the public responded to,
Yeah.
but your own opinion of your own music is always probably different. What is yours different from the public opinion?
No, I really love Dilemma. It's hard. I hear the question leaning towards which one of your songs do you like the most, and you'll hear the common answer from musicians, specifically saying that your songs are like babies, and you
Mm.
can't pick one over the other.
Hmm.
So there are some that depending on what mood I'm in, I'll respond to more than others. Some of them are more personal than others. I had made a habit when I was first starting out to not write songs that were too close to my own experiences, and I, I stopped doing that around Dilemma. And I think that's what really changed my approach to songwriting. I had kind of like a block between writing things that were too close to my heart or my experiences. I'd rather write about someone else's experiences or what I see, and I'd be content at just kind of painting that picture. But once I started telling more personal stories, I think the honesty kind
Mm.
of shine through more. Back to that term.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good thing to come back to.
Yeah.
I, for me, I feel like, and I want to know your opinion on this too. Like, I feel like when it comes to songwriting, like, there's so many different artists that approach it a different way, right? Specifically in terms of perspective, like you were mentioning. Like you
Hmm.
said, for you, when it comes to writing about yourself, that's where like the honesty comes through. But then
Hmm.
there's other artists who are really good at like immersing themselves in someone else's perspective
Yeah.
to write as authentically and honestly as they can about what this other person is feeling.
Yeah,
Is that
all
something?
the time. So we're in the studio creating for other artists. So if I'm producing or writing for another artist, that's my job. That's my intent, is to tap into their experience.
Right.
So I'll sit down at the keys, and the first question is, what are you feeling? What mood are you in?
Mhm.
And I'll play that mood, right? And
Mhm.
they're like, okay. And if that sets the pace and the kind of like the vibe for where we're going to go to, I want to follow where their head is at and let them write to it, or we can write together. I think the the great producers, the great songwriters who do it for others are able to tap into other folks' stories and their emotions. And I've worked long enough to kind of excel at that as well. Yeah.
Hmm.
Very nice.
So that's
Sounds like
another
what a
degree of
therapist
honesty.
has to do. Kind
Kind
of
of.
to the
Come again?
yeah, therapist.
Exact. It is. There's therapy involved. Yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
triggered a few kind of emotions during some sessions. Folks break down, crying, and you kind of have to build them back up so that they can keep singing and such. That's a great point. Yeah. Music is therapy. The creation of it is as well.
It really is. It really,
Yes,
really is.
indeed.
I just, wow. I mean, we were talking to, I think, Maria Moss
Hmm.
the other day, and she was talking about what it's like for her as a songwriter when she has to, she's a Spanish artist, so like
Yeah.
sometimes she has to translate music for people and like help artists. Like she helped Cher, for example, like sing
Sure.
a song, a version of her song in Spanish.
Sure.
And like she was talking about that process, and it just came to mind because it reminds me of what you're talking about. Like you really have to have that sort of patience with the artist that you're working with. It's like you
Yeah.
have to understand one their ability, but also like
Yeah.
understand like you have to meet them where they're at, like who they are, what they're trying to do with the song, and how to
Mhm.
like how they want to vocally compose it and everything.
Sure.
That just reminded me of that.
Well, I think, the reason for that is because in translating, it's not like Maria was saying, it's not a direct translation.
Mhm.
There's like a process in an art to finding the right words in a different language to either say the same thing or sound, like have a similar vocal pattern or something. And it is like intimate with the artist because you're asking another artist, like, you know, what's an alternative of your song? It's a whole
Right.
other creative process.
A great example of that is, have you ever used Google Translate?
Yes.
Yes.
You can
Of
pop
course,
something
Besada.
in and it'll give you something. It'll be in that language, but it won't be what you said. It'll be something along the lines of that language. It'll be in Spanish, but it's sure not, it's not what I wrote.
Many a Spanish test. Yes.
Right. So it
Yeah.
takes a finesse. It takes that human touch.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't just plug and chug.
Would
Yeah.
you ever
Yeah.
want to, I guess, sing or like maybe like perform a song that was written for you by someone else?
I wouldn't mind doing that. I have not done that, but I wouldn't mind doing it. It's the songwriting process is so deeply personal to me that I've kind of made it a habit to just do it myself. I collaborate,
Hmm.
but to take someone else's song. That's why I rarely do covers when we perform live.
Mm.
Is because I don't want to be held. There are people who do covers amazingly, and like you forget who wrote it, right? You forget the original version of the song. And I never. Maybe it's an apprehension that I need to get over. It's just I never wanted to be judged for someone else's version of a song, right?
Mm.
Like I don't want to mess it up.
Hmm.
But I've done it, and yeah, but
That
I would do it. Yeah,
that would be really cool in my opinion.
yeah,
I mean, for me, covers. When I was younger, I used to always like listen to like endless YouTube covers of popular songs, and the reason why I did it was just because I wanted to listen to everybody's unique interpretation of
mm,
what the artist was trying to say with their
that's a
vocal
great point.
composition. So, I mean, when it comes to me, sometimes people think that covers are like a competition. Like it's like, you're singing like that, but I like the way Beyonce does it better. Like I like the way that this other
Yeah,
cover does it better. But I think every single cover is very unique.
it's a
To
new
me,
song basically.
exactly, it's a new song.
Yeah,
Like Whitney Houston and Dolly Parton, for example. When Dolly sings "I Will Always Love You," it's it's meaningful and it's beautiful, but it's Dolly's. You know, she's singing it. You can tell where she's coming from. You can tell what she's saying with her "I will always love you." But when Whitney sings it, it's completely different. You can tell that she's
Yeah.
coming from a completely different place. She's singing to a completely different person, and she's singing for a completely different reason. You know.
Yep.
Well, words can have many meanings, you
Yep.
know? Same words have many meanings, especially if it's being sung different. I mean, I feel like singing and vocalizing is almost context, you know? It really is. It
Mm.
like the sound of music clues you into how you feel. However, I will say there are some artists that kind of trick you, right? They play one melody, but if you actually listen to the lyrics, like the tune could be super happy, but the lyrics are like really depressing.
Yeah. That
I
happens.
Wow.
honestly, I love those ones. I love them.
Conversation's getting deep.
That's what we do.
I
Please
love
do
it.
a cover. Please do a cover. I want
Unfortunately,
Yeah, I've done it before. We'll do it
yeah,
again for sure. For
to.
sure. Yeah.
you do you. I'm excited to hear your singles and your album coming out at the before the end of the year.
Definitely before the end of the year. We put out a song on Valentine's Day, Next to Me. The animated lyric video is out on YouTube now. You can check it out.
Yeah,
We released Runaway not too long ago, and the animated video is coming out tomorrow on Friday.
perfect.
Yeah.
That's
So
great. Oh my
I'm really
gosh.
excited about that. Teamed up with a great animator from Brazil, GU. So, we were in a pandemic, so we couldn't kind of film live.
Mhm.
Uh, so we resorted to animation, and it's kind of worked well for us.
Yeah, what a creative solution.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Plus,
What was it like collaborating in a pandemic for that project specifically?
because of this, internet connections, everybody's gone online and had to
Yeah.
had to figure it out. But they've also realized that you can connect with people around the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, because we are coming
Sure.
to the end of our time,
Yes.
we have we normally ask two questions. I feel like we almost already answered them because
Okay.
we always ask like what advice do you have for young creatives or people who are in the music industry, like from your experience. And I know that you gave us some advice earlier, but if you have anything else that you're like, this is a little tidbit that'll get you a
Hmm.
long way, like
Hmm.
what would it be?
Yeah. Well, I think this one applies to almost anything that anyone does, but
Mhm.
it applies in music and it applies in acting and it applies in your day-to-day life. I use it and I stick by it. If you know your why you're doing something, then you're more than halfway there. Because no matter what, those hurdles are going to come, those storms are going to come, those naysayers are going to come. And the only thing that's going to get you through that is if you know why you're doing it, right? That finish line has got to have a purpose attached to it like nothing else. And you've got to be locked into it. So know your why. Why am I doing this? And if it's got to mean something to you. And if that's solid, then man, you'll shake this world. I think that's what we're all doing in some degree or another.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
Yeah.
poetic, first of all.
Uh,
that.
it's
Yeah.
truth. It's
Thank you.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with that being said, I guess we've already talked about your upcoming projects, which I'm really excited for. So that video is releasing tomorrow, you said?
Tomorrow, yep, Friday,
Yeah.
April 2nd. Yep.
Yes,
I'm really
confirmed.
excited about it.
Definitely
Yeah.
everybody, stream that for sure.
Yeah, so
Um,
this video will come out after that, but
Okay.
make sure to, share it on our socials so anybody that's
For
already
sure.
following us will see us.
Oh,
And
for
if you're
sure.
not already following us, you should definitely do that.
If you're not following them, there's something wrong with you. You need to be following them.
I don't know.
I mean, goodness. I mean,
And Rob.
if you're not following anybody, if you're not following them, let's go.
I love this promo. But with that being said, Rob, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate, I'm sure we both just really appreciate you just, hopping on this call for this discussion. It was really meaningful. I can really sense your passion. I can sense your why very much. Like I can sense you have a very firm sense of direction. And as a fan of yours already from On My Black, I cannot wait to see more.
Oh man, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you guys today, and looking forward to doing it again soon.
Yay. Thank you to our listeners. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.